Have you ever wondered what some guy on the internet thinks about all the Mario Kart games? Well, I hope so, because that's what this is. If not, please exit now. Now, I have been a lifelong Mario Kart enjoyer, and I'm sure like many of you out there, it's a series that is fundamental to your childhood. It's had ups, it's had downs, but at the core, the series is one of the best when you just want to do some fun racing and have a good time with friends. And some even have a plethora of incredible single-player content as well. So we're going to go through every single mainline game and discuss them all in my opinion. Now, of course, this is just my opinion, just trying to have some fun here with this series I love so much. And it's a game series I've been playing ever since I was about 4 years old. That makes this a very, very biased ranking, in all honesty. And if you want objectivity in a Mario Kart ranking video, I don't really know how to help you there, because that sounds kind of stupid. So go check Metacritic, I guess that's your only option. Also, I promise at the very end we will even discuss the newest game, Mario Kart World, a little bit more in detail. And I guess if you hate discussion of all other Mario Kart games, you can just skip to that. I'll have a timestamp down below. But my planned discussion of this game does hinder on you understanding a little bit more about my feelings on all the other previous games and their offerings. But with that in mind, let's rev up this engine, discuss the roaring heart of Nintendo's biggest money-making machine. Sometimes with the earlier franchises, there's this sentiment that there's no real reason to go back to the originals, but Super Mario Kart is one of the most charming to go back to, even though I've never really played it before. Now, technically I do not own the game, but I do have the Switch Online, but that's where I ended up playing it for the majority of this little session that I had with it. My favorite part about Super Mario Kart is the pixel art is just incredibly fun and cute. I absolutely love the character Yoshi in general, and here Yoshi has a great iteration. He's got a lot of little tongue action, which is not something I usually say here, but I would die for this Yoshi, and he's incredibly cute and made my time with him incredibly enjoyable. Now, the gameplay of the game is a little disorienting at first, especially as someone who's not used to it, and the skills that I've accumulated over the years from all the other games don't really transfer very well here, but you do indeed need skill, especially when drifting, as it feels like the whole world is just kind of spinning around when you do drift, and drifting is also really hard in this game for the most of the time. I tried early on and I would end up spinning off the track, and more often than not I would take my foot off the gas pedal instead to make those tight turns, which is something that I don't really do in many of the other Mario Kart games. Most of the time in those games, pretty much never keep my hand off the A button. The addition of coins in this game was also something I didn't really expect, as because most of the games don't really have that until some of the more newer games. And especially if you look up speedruns for this game, they are pretty crazy, as any other Mario Kart, but I think these ones are pretty special on their own. Also, Rainbow Road is absolutely diabolical in this game. So with that in mind though, it is a pretty fun game, though I'd probably put it in a B tier for right now. Now, the next game in our list that we have to talk about is Mario Kart 64, and I do have to say this, and I probably should have said this with Super Mario Kart, but I was actually only 1 year old when Mario Kart 64 came out, so I never really played it very much as a kid. I do remember some of my first experiences with gaming in general were watching my older cousins play this game, along with Smash 64 and a couple other things, but other than that, I don't have much experience from this as a kid, other than those memories. I do think this game was heavily responsible for my love of Yoshi, my precious green boy that you'll see a lot of footage of me playing Yoshi throughout all these games because I love my guy. Now, the first time I actually did play this game in adulthood, I got sucked in how hard this game is, and it can be very different, but also it's very fun when you're drunk. This is arguably the most important Mario Kart game in this series. So much like Super, there's just a lot of charm to it. The characters warp their big ass heads when they're turning around corners, and when drifting even more so, and they just look, again, incredibly cute. And there's just that aesthetic that I love from this game, but the gameplay is, well, it's a little bit weird in this game. I can't help but feeling there's a lot of things that do feel quite unfair with this game, and it can get a little bit of getting used to, as it's a bit of a mess sometimes, just like Super Mario Kart. In a single player in this game, the rubber banding is just incredibly insane. There's just no room for error in a 150cc, and I personally heard a lot of people say that Super is worse, but I personally had a lot more struggles with this game and rubber banding. It was so bad at one point when I was in Rainbow Road and I had golden mushrooms, I still couldn't even keep up with the characters in front of me, and I would have lost if I didn't have a Thunderbolt, and that's just one story of very many. The tracks here are some of the most iconic and some of the most memorable in the entire series, and to see their OG incarnation is a real treat. But then there's also courses like Yoshi Valley, and I know it's named after my little boy, but I don't know what is going on here. The first time I did this, it took me about 4 minutes to do this track, and Mario Kart 64 would definitely be my favorite racing game if it wasn't for, I'm sure you might be wondering why I had this tape, and that's because this is actually Diddy Kong Racing. I actually really like Diddy Kong Racing. This is not a video about Diddy Kong Racing, but I think I kind of prefer this. But I'll stop shooting myself in the foot here, and I'm also going to put Mario Kart 64 in B tier. Now, I have gone on record several times saying that I am a Game Boy Advance freak, and it's one of my favorite handhelds of all time. So you'd think that I played Super Circuit a lot as a kid. Well, nope, I actually never owned it until much later. Now here's the pitch for the game. It's a mix of Super and Mario Kart 64, but kind of also not really, as this is mostly a sequel to Super Mario Kart. This game fixed a lot of the issues in Super, especially in single player. I didn't really get that rubber banding feel, and this does feel a little bit more like a casual handheld experience to kind of match if you probably had Mario Kart 64 or one of the other titles. And while I did kind of enjoy this game, I didn't want to turn out this way because, again, I do love a Game Boy Advance. But unfortunately, this game just had me the most bored of probably any other Mario Kart game that I played. And as someone who loves the GBA aesthetic as usually, it's just not really what I hoped in this game. I did find out this game was made by Intelligent Systems, the people who make my favorite series, Fire Emblem, which was interesting to find out. But for some reason, this game just really didn't hit for me. It's probably more of a game of the time. If you grew up with this, I'm sure you love this game. But for me, it just wasn't hitting. The only thing I find interesting is that it does have a lot of the tracks from Super Circuit, which is pretty cute, but I don't know. I still kind of feel like I'd rather go back to the original if I wanted to play those tracks. This game right here, this is the game that I really grew up playing a lot, and when I got my GameCube. And I played this game a ton with friends, even though I technically didn't own the game until quite a bit later. But then I did eventually trade this for my copy of Gale of Darkness, and who's laughing now? But going back, I just love how rigid the karts here are, and the characters don't warp as much. It was kind of fun in the other games, but at least it doesn't confuse me as much as the other ones, as those were a much more a learning curve to play these in a modern era, where this one felt much more standard. Now, unlocking everything in this game can be a little bit of a pain, but it is indeed a fun game, and I will say multiplayer is where this game really shines, because there's so many varied ways that you can actually play this game. You can play it as the regular Mario Kart, where you control both characters on the kart, and you can play against your friends or a Grand Prix or whatever you're doing, or you could also play it co-op, where one friend is in front and the other's in the back. I know that sounds a little weird, but you know, that's just how this game is. Most arguments I had about this game between my friends were actually what the best combo of characters is and who hits better from behind than the races themselves. I'm a diehard Parachupa X Baby Mario stan myself, which I know that sounds really weird, but trust me, their special items are just the best. And overall, this game just stands out so unique in the franchise for just kind of a different version of strategy that's not in a lot of the other games. But for that, I'm going to easily put this game as our first game in A tier. Now with Mario Kart DS, we are really in the depths of nostalgia for me. This is when I was in my peak Mario Kart phase. And this game probably has my second deepest and just most cherished memories overall. This is where I became truly obsessed with Mario Kart, especially on the single player level. Sure, I have a ton of fun memories playing with friends, like I do with Double Dash, but this game just has so much extra content. This is the first game to have proper Grand Prix dedicated to all the retro tracks. It also has a mission mode, which is a great way to not just learn the mechanics, but also test your skills and have some fun overall, and it's very unique to this game. There's also even boss battles in this game, which is something they never really did in any of the other games, and something I really hope they would go back to. It's something that kind of a game like Diddy Kong Racing also had a version of that. But this game is definitely what made me an elite Mario Kart player. Learning about mini turbos and all the unintended shortcuts of this game, and all the mechanics were just, felt much more technical, this game. And even pioneered this weird snaking style of play with mini turbos that honestly, when I was trying to do it to get some gameplay of this, and I even couldn't do it. I was much better at this game as a kid, and I wouldn't even be able to touch my old time trials, especially in Yoshi Falls. I used to play that as Yoshi repeatedly for hours. Plus, the two-screen format for a game like this just fits so well for a game, so you can be able to have the map and see what's going on in front of you and behind you. Also, I like how the characters still had their own fun, unique karts in this game, and then there's characters like Rob, who were finally acknowledged in this game and then never acknowledged really again except for Smash Bros. Brawl. And to this day, this game is just chock full of a lot of memories, and I think of this game when I think of handheld Mario Kart first. But with that said, I think we're going to put Mario Kart DS in the S tier. It's our first S tier game because, again, I just love it so much. Now, Mario Kart Wii holds an especially unique place in my heart, and I think for a lot of other people as well, around my age. It's a game that had such widespread appeal that even people like my mom were able to play with motion controls. It just made sense because the Wii was the party console and this was a party game. There's just so many cool characters in this game, there's so many things to unlock. They added bikes to this game for the very first time, and yeah, there are some problems, especially with bikes, as they can do tricks, they can pop wheelies for extra speed, and that makes this game a little bit unfair, especially as you get better at the game. Some bikes are even more broken broken, and there's a meta to this game just unlike any other Mario Kart game. It's also kind of weird that the Grand Prix are split between karts, bikes, and karts and bikes, almost like they acknowledge that bikes are faster than karts. But getting back into this game styles with wheeling and drifting was a little bit hard, I'm not gonna lie. My first race I really did suck with playing this game again, but that doesn't mean it was bad, and I had a lot of fun revisiting all those memories that I had with this game. But also, speedrunning for this game is pretty nutty and is probably one of the best to watch outside of Mario Kart 64. But really, why Mario Kart Wii is so special to me is because this is the game where my little sister specifically started getting into playing more video games, and I was able to play Mario Kart Wii with her a lot as a kid. I'm sure any of you that had a sibling would probably know what I'm talking about, but it's just so much more fun to demolish your little sibling and play Mario Kart, because even playing with your friends, eventually they have to go home, but your sister or brother or whatever, they're always there. They always have time to just fit in a couple quick runs. I have so many memories of myself and my sister just going down DK Mountain doing tricks and shit, or even just roaming around places like Coconut Mall, just trying to find little secrets and Easter eggs and little shortcuts. A lot of times we'd almost just go around Coconut Mall and act like we were in a mall ourselves, and we weren't even racing at that point. We were kind of just roaming around and looking at all the weird little shops in there, trying to see if there's anything unique about them or any new hidden shortcuts. And then when we go to places like DK Mountain where you're able to do a lot of tricks, it was almost like we were playing a Tony Hawk Pro Skater game instead of Mario Kart. And we incentivized doing as much tricks as possible rather than even just winning. So yeah, I truly have a lot of special memories with Mario Kart Wii that are very unique, and that's why I'm also going to put this as my favorite Mario Kart game to date right now, and I'm going to put it high in the S tier. That leads us to Mario Kart 7, and Mario Kart 7 is just kind of weird. On one hand, I played the shit out of this game when it first released, and while at first I didn't kind of like the change of kart customization, by the time I got all of the karts, it was really fleshed out and I really had a good time. There's lots of good new and old tracks, and they added gliding, which sure, that's a cool mechanic I guess, but this was also the first game that they really started doing things like melding laps together for full-length races rather than just 3 laps, which does make this game pretty fundamental to the later Mario Kart games and what they're doing with those. But in the end, this game is just a little bit forgettable and is made almost completely obsolete with later games. And it really struggles, and especially playing it nowadays, it really struggles to find a unique identity from itself compared to games like Mario Kart Double Dash, which definitely stand out as pretty unique even today. So in a lot of ways, it is kind of like Super Circuit, which is why I'm going to put Mario Kart 7 with Super Circuit in the C tier. I also just don't have as many precious memories for this game because, again, because at this point I wasn't playing the game with my sister anymore. I was in college at this point, and I was kind of just playing it mostly as a lone experience in a dusty dorm room, so I was mostly playing online, or if anything. So yeah, Mario Kart 7 just kind of feels like a little bit of a stepping stone at this point. Now, that being said, I have a lot of special memories with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Now, sometimes this game has some of the same problems as some of the other games, but one thing you can't say this game didn't do was stick around, and I've been playing this game for way too long, mostly during the entire Switch lifecycle when I was able to get Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This game essentially takes everything from all of these other Mario Karts, everything they've ever done, even things like Double Dash, when we have 2 items, and puts it all into one game. And honestly, I kind of thought of this game as the perfect Mario Kart game for a long time. And the only thing that was bad about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is that they just milked the game so long, and that's not really a problem with the game itself, and that was just how Nintendo treated it. There's so many tracks in that you can play in this game that I don't even have all of them. I've never even bought most of the DLC tracks in this game. There's so many extra modes in this game as well, like 200cc, that are making games like Mario Kart World feel like they don't have enough content, which is kind of crazy. But overall, I don't have much to say because I'm gonna put this game in S tier because it's really good, but that's really it. It's just kind of the definitive Mario Kart game up until very recently that added a lot of stuff from all these other games into one. Now, with that all being said, it's time to talk about the newest game, Mario Kart World. And if you're watching this later in the future, some of this might sound a little bit weird, and in fact, I'm sure a lot of this will sound pretty weird, as this game was only made about a week or a little over a week after the initial release for this game. And I know some of you out there forget the passage of time exists and that videos are not uploaded 1 second before you hit play, so just keep that in mind. If I had to describe Mario Kart World in one sentence though, it would be this. As a Mario Kart game, this game is pretty fantastic, but this game is clearly trying to be something a bit more, and make you pay more for it too, and that's where I think it really falters. So now I'm going to explain that a little bit as this is my promised first impressions / mini review of Mario Kart World. So let's talk about the good stuff first. First, this game looks amazing in both handheld and on TV. The character roster is a little bit limited in my opinion, and there's clear glaring omissions, but I have no doubt they will feed them all to us in future updates or just make us pay. I love how the courses blend together with both new and classic tracks to make them feel like an unlimited amount of track combinations, especially with Knockout Tour. Knockout Tour is probably my favorite new mode that maybe they've ever added to Mario Kart, honestly. It's really fun, and because of that, how much they worked in making this world and putting all the planning into all the other tracks, it makes racing in that mode so much fun and so unique with these long ass races across the entire map. But it does lead into one of the first problems with this game, and I like the chaos of 24 players, but one of the things I don't like in this game is that items default to sticking behind you, and in most games they would stay hidden in your inventory. Now I do love a little bit of chaos, but often I lose my items sometimes almost instantly after getting them out of a box, and that really does suck. Also, because of how things did turn out with modes like Knockout Tour and how they were building out this map, it does seem that they've decided to make the decision that when you race online, you can't choose the kind of generic 3-lap structure that we have in all the other games. And so I really hope that's something that they update in the future. And this became really apparent when you get mirror mode, as the whole concept of mirror mode is really dependent on you knowing the track like the back of your hand, and then that impact of when it's flipped, and that's why it's so. But because there's so many combos and mixtures, mirror mode is kind of flaccid. There's a lot of improv driving in this game, especially right now when we're still all learning things, and all the combos make it really hard to memorize them all, which is a good thing for normal gameplay and variety with friends, but it does lessen the impact of something like mirror mode, because it almost felt like there's nothing that changed at all. It was hard to even tell the difference sometimes. I personally think it probably would have been better to have started off with something like 200cc first and then get mirror mode later, when we've kind of learned a little bit more about all the other tracks. Now the real stinky cow in the room is that $80 price tag, and trying to think of a justification of why it's priced like that. And in my opinion, the main justification for this is the whole free roam mode and all the work they probably put it towards that, but I kind of just don't personally like free roam that much, and that is my opinion, and I just kind of find it a little bit boring. And I really only did it at this point to unlock mirror mode, and once I did that, I'm kind of sure not what I'm supposed to do there other than just have some fun. Now some of the P-switches are genuinely really fun, and they're very hard. There's a couple of in there that took multiple tries to actually get, and that was fun. But some of the other collectibles are definitely boring, as the only reward you get is stickers. If you haven't played this game yet, I think your opinion on this whole mode will heavily hinge on how you're motivated to play games in general. Now personally, I do like games with RPG systems and shit like that in my games. So if something like P-switches were building up your character in an RPG kind of way, and maybe after clearing an area you get a boss battle, kind of like we had in the mission mode in Mario Kart DS or something like that, that would be really cool, but I haven't seen anything like that in this game yet. And personally, when I'm just driving through there, I just kind of want there to be something a little bit more, but hey, this is what we got, so sure, it is kind of a cozy gamer dream if you like that kind of stuff, but I don't think it's entirely for me. And I think one thing though that would make this honestly like 10 times better is if I could couch co-op this mode with my wife, which I did think was something that was going to be possible in this game, and I don't know why I thought that, but I did get a little confused when I realized I could not do that easily. And the core Mario Kart experience is something that is really supposed to be shared, and I feel like there are a couple things that I just can't do with my wife and play couch co-op. Now we have been able to do things like Knockout Tour and Grand Prix, and these are definitely have been the best experience that I've had throughout this entire game, and that's why a lot of footage that I'll have for this game is going to be in a co-op split screen mode. But it's only when she's done playing that I decide to do a little bit of free roaming, and my mind starts to wander of what this whole mode could have been. It's probably too late to do any drastic changes to the things that my mind is roaming to, but I do think it's not too late to at least add something like an objective board or a mission board, you know, something like Smash Ultimate or even Kirby Air Rider style, I don't know. But I'm getting a little bit off topic, and so let's just rank the game. And I'm personally going to put this game still in A tier despite all of those problems that I had, but I don't really want to rate it any higher right now, because I hope this game does get much better and better, but what they've delivered so far in this core state I think is quite lacking, especially when you consider that the game is indeed $80. But to be fair, this is just how Nintendo is doing things, and I probably would have said the same thing about the original Mario Kart 8 compared to something what Deluxe has offered. But with that all being said, this is indeed the list that I have chosen, and if you have a problem with it, I'm sure you'll make yourself known, but I hope you had a good time just listening to a Mario Kart fan pour his heart out about this game series that he loves so much, and let me know what your favorite Mario Kart games are down below.